Well, you could take this one way or another, depending on how you feel about this. But before we start, don't forget, smash on that subscribe, hit that like, don't forget to share it, and if you can, check us out in the description below where you can donate to the shows here at Cuticast TV. Well, this one came out, I guess hours ago on the New York Post. This person, he's been a thorn in the back of every YouTuber, including a war with Steven Crowder and Tucker Carlson. Maza reportedly leaving VOX after harassment on Twitter. Now, getting into this article, and you could read this on New York Post when you bring this up. Like I said, you could take this two ways. Either VOX and Carlos has parted ways, where Carlos has resigned, or VOX has sort of seen the writing on the wall that Carlos has been a problem, and basically they decided to nip it in the bud and decided to let him go. And before you say, well, he doesn't deserve to be fired. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't deserve to be fired, but when you start pulling on the tail of the tiger, and that in the case of a lot of YouTubers, and that's basically, you start an attack on one guy because one person is a comedian, makes fun of you. I mean, come on. Your Twitter handle is Gay Wonk. And, if you're trying to make a suggestion of a joke as far as that, you ask for it where other people can make that joke. But in the case of this, you started pulling threads because you did not like what certain people said about you, so you might as well burn everybody else, which ended in another adpocalypse, which started to hurt a lot of people. And then YouTube started demonetizing or pulling YouTubers offline because of how this person felt. And I don't consider him to be a journalist, maybe an opinionated journalist or an activist journalist, because basically, when you look at the situation and you see some of these articles that he's written and some of the videos that he's done, and you have to say to yourself, how does VOX stay in business? You have all these sites like BuzzFeed, VOX, Gawker, Gizmodo, all these people, they're just going out of business and losing money because basically, you're not hiring journalists. You're just hiring activists. If you're going to write the news, be opinionated both ways. You got to show both sides. And, if you're going to do just pure opinionated news, then don't call yourself a journalist. Because basically, you're just putting your opinions, how you feel on there. There are problems in the world. There are problems, in the gay community on both sides. It's not everyone's hands are clean. We do have major situations going on, and that some stuff have to be resolved. I could take 2 hours on a show just going over this, but I'm not going to right now, because if I do, YouTube will probably either demonetize me or shut me down. So, and this is not bending of the knee either. We'll figure out a way of discussing it one day on American Asylum. But for now, we're just going to go over this. But basically, Maza, wanted to take Crowder down. YouTube said, well, we can't take him down. I mean, the only thing we can do is demonetize him. That's about it. And just basically, he just got madder and madder to the point where, everybody ended up in the crosshairs. He had Tucker Carlson. And you saw what happened with Tucker Carlson. They were banging down on his door. Right now at the moment, Tucker hasn't been on all week. And I've been questioning that myself. What is going on? He just came back from a vacation, and now he's not on the air. I guess we'll find out soon. And, one thing you have to remember the situation. There is comedy. You may not like all comedy. And speaking to Maza. But the thing about it is, you can't call it hate speech, because there have been plenty of comedians out there that have done gay jokes, some tasteful and some distasteful. You can't dictate what a comedian says. You can't say, well, you can't talk about gays, you can't talk about transgenders, you can't talk about feminists. You can't. No, it's either everybody's fair game or no one is all. You know, and this is what's happening in comedy. You know, you have some people that's being way over the top. You know, talking about the conservatives and the far right, and you know, people that are centrist left, and they're calling them, you know, making fun of them, calling them white supremacists, and you just don't understand what is hate itself. And basically, you know, put it in this perspective. Let me refresh myself here. According to the Constitution in this country, we have freedom of speech. According to the Supreme Court in the late 1960s, they deemed that there is no such thing as hate speech. Now, whether you like it or not, no matter who is spewing what they're saying, there is no hate speech. And I don't know why people tend to use this. And they're trying to use it to the point where it weaponizes it. It's the same thing with the Me Too movement. You know, hashtag Me Too. They're using it as a weapon. Whereas there are truly people out there that have been, you know, sexually assaulted, but they can't come forward because of stuff that has been done. And it's the same thing with this. You're creating a toxic atmosphere where, you know, if we're talking in A-B conversation and say we're talking about football, and I say, oh, I like the Giants, and the other person says, well, I like the Jets, and I don't respect you because you don't like the Jets, because you're spewing hate speech against the Jets. Now, you might say that I find ridiculous, but that's what's going on. But in other terminologies, in other subjects, you know, if someone disagrees with you that the sky is blue, you can't say that they're spewing hate speech. You know, if someone says, well, you know, there are problems in the climate and stuff like that, but, you know, it's not hurting the earth. That's their opinion. You can't call that hate. They're not hating. They're forming an opinion. And that's the thing with Maza, is that basically people have opinions, whether it's comedic, non-comedic. He has had himself. In fact, you know, the difference is between, you know, when you say something in the freedom of speech and then it turns into violence, is when you threaten someone with violence. Like Carlos Maza did, you know, throw milkshakes at them. And you'll say, well, milkshakes is just milk and ice cream. Yeah, but what if someone has an allergy to milk? Or they decide to put something in it, like we saw what happened in Seattle, whereas concrete was put in it. Concrete sand was put into the liquid. And he said, but Zane, that wouldn't make it solid or anything. So no, but when you pour it on somebody, it can cause basically acid burns. And you can look this up. You can look this up under OSHA. OSHA will tell you this is what happens when you pour, when you mix concrete with the water or anything. You put the concrete into some sort of liquid, and you pour it on someone's skin. You know, you can't sit there and criticize someone, and then when you criticize someone and you make threats, you can't expect them to, you know, not come back at you with more comedy or more, you know, talking about you. So I think that is the perspective that I think VOX was looking at. that basically he's gone a little too far on Twitter. Because when you say, well, how do you think you know why he was fired? Is when you get to the end of the story, it's basically the Post had a source that Maza is negotiating a severance package. Now, most of the time, when you're doing a severance package, is either you're retiring or you're leaving the company to the specifications, whereas you're being fired or being asked to leave. Now, in most cases, when you're talking that you're quitting, you've already made the acknowledgments that of your severance package, because you looked at your terms of your severance package, and you knew what you were getting, and you're leaving, plain and simple. But if you're negotiating your severance, that is to the point where it's like, hey, listen, you owe me X amount of dollars, and basically you're going to pay me that plus this. And that happens a lot. Now, if you hear a little meowing in the back, my executive producer there, he's a bit upset today. I don't know what's going on. Are we okay, Mr. J? He's always a good one. And you see his face we put his face forward on Man with the Show. And he's a good boy every episode. Like I said, take it for what it is. Believe it whether he's fired, not fired, he's moving on, whatever it is. Hopefully he'll stay away from the YouTubers, or the frightening thought is that he gets his own channel and stuff like that on his own. Then again, I think it'll end up to be all-out war at that point. And I think that's what VOX was also seeing, is that, they were okay with him going after Crowder, but now he was escalating, and I guess they just said, that's it, we're done. Especially, like I said, some of the media, some of this left media, and I'm not saying all left media is bad. I mean, you got Tim Pool out there. He's a central left. He does a good job of it because he does hit both sides. You got to remember, and like I said this before, is like, if you could criticize one, you can criticize both. And that's always the situation. And that's what he gets hit on. People are starting to call him far right. I understand, like I said again, I understand there are problems in the gay community, and it's been long outstanding. I've been around the block a long time here. I lived in New York most of my life, except for there was a 10-year gap, which I was not in the city. I was elsewhere. But I grew up in the 60s and 70s and grew up with a lot of shit that was going on. And, if you say that I've not experienced hatred and stuff like that, you're wrong. I have. For someone who's Hispanic, growing up in a Midtown aspect, which basically back in the 60s and 70s, you did not want to be there after dusk. Because, the drug dealers and the hookers came out at night, people that were not too great, because you were near a couple places that housed people with mental problems, drug problems. The neighborhood has changed greatly in the last 30 years. It's not like it used to be. I mean, right now you got a lot of clubs, restaurants, bars all over the place. But back then, it was a lot of families living there. And we went through some hard times, and we went through some hatred, There was some hatred that went out there, and the ones who felt it the most were the children. I happen to be one of them, and I can go through a lot of this, and I've discussed this before. And, you could say, well, but you weren't gay and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. If someone hates you and they want to do what you. I mean, okay, let me put in this aspect what I went through real quickly. When you have someone's parents, who dislikes a certain family, and has their child attack their child, the child that they of the family they hate on a constant basis. I mean, they would be standing on a corner and saying, "Go get him right now, beat him up," you know. And you try to figure out why, and you know you can't. I mean, the anger is just through the roof. And you know the thing about it is, my family did nothing in the nature. We didn't even care to them. When these people when the child was kicked out of school, we moved on. But you know there were other things, and you might say, well, you didn't, you know, didn't so. Listen, I had gay bars around in that neighborhood during the 70s. You know, we had a place called Company, and you know they had their problems in the situation. They're no longer there anymore. You know, and they had their issues. They went through their times and stuff like that. But let me tell you something: people in the neighborhood weren't going in, beating down their door, trying to get them out of the neighborhood. You know, people tolerated it. You know, there are those who can tolerate the situation, but when you escalate the situation, you're making enemies of the people who are tolerating you. You know, it's always, you know, if you want to be the way you want to be, fine and dandy, but don't try to escalate hate that, you know, everybody hates you. You know, you're only putting yourself in the crosshairs. And that's especially you, Carlos Maza. You were putting yourselves in the crosshairs by doing what you do. And if you've become popular online, expect this. Tim Pool's even said this. You know, even myself, there was a time when doing public access, I used to get a lot of bad letters. I used to get a lot of bad phone calls from people who did not like the show or didn't like what I talked about. It happens when you have a popular scale level. You're going to be in the crosshairs. No matter what color, creed, sexual preference you are, if you're in this community, you know you're bound. It's going to happen. You know, we're seeing this with the Vic Mignogna case. We're seeing this with the fandom in the Star Wars, Comics Gate, Anime Gate. You could name a dozen things on there where people have just gone crazy. You could sit there on Twitter all day, type in anything, or on Reddit, type in any subject matter. You will find people screaming about it all day, all night. You know, it just amazes me how it on. And I'm rambling on just a little bit, but it's ridiculous. You know, for him to be leaving VOX, maybe that might help VOX a little bit. I doubt it because they still have a lot of writers there that they're not really reporters. You know, I've had friends who have been in the networks. They've reported news and stuff like that, and they did it properly. What has happened to that? I blame the way they're teaching in the schools now, and how things are being taught. And you know, now they're pushing it to a lower, into the younger kids, that they just want to put political aspects, take away from things. And you know, if a kid can't do the math or read, and then they try to push an agenda on the child's going to grow up messed up. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. I've been seeing it. I've seen anger from, you know, the younger generation that's growing up right now, and and this is what happened with this gentleman, with Maza. You know, I don't know where he learned a lot of this stuff to be the way he is. Maybe he's doing it for the money, you know, for all I know, and that would be being an SOB, which I wouldn't put that out of the ranking on there. So, comment below. Tell me what you think of the situation. You know, I would say, are you happy he's gone? You know, I don't think he's going to be gone. But as far as VOX and him are pretty much apart. So don't forget, we are on mindsandgab.com. Thank you for those subscribing, smashing on that like, supporting us, and sharing. Very important. Share this video. Take a moment. And I'm going to say, I normally gave 10. I'm going to give you this challenge. Send out 5 of any of these videos. It doesn't have to be this one. Pick out 5 videos. Send that to 5 people each. All 5 videos. Tell them watch it. You know, if they like it, tell them to subscribe. It says, hey, I like this guy. I like how he talks. That's what we're here for. We're here to entertain you. Show you our wares, show you, what we can do. There are going to be people that are going to be dislike what I do, and that's fine and dandy. I take it both ways. Hey, you like the show, fine. If you don't like the show, fine also. I can't get upset over. I can't, like I've always says, I can, have 99% of my viewers like my show. I can never get that 1% to not to like it, and that's okay. It's okay to have that. Maybe one day they'll like it. I might talk about something or put up something they may like, and they'll come and view it. So until tomorrow, we got two more coming tomorrow because, oh my God, it's Thursday, end of the week. The summer's going quick. So thank you for tuning in here at Man with the Show. I'm Zane on Q to Cast TV. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.